Okay. Hang on. Ugh, gotta open the window. Curtains. Curtains, that's what I meant. Get a little bit more light in here. No. Home, a unique horror adventure by Benjamin Rivers. Press that X though. Your game will be saved automatically at certain points. However, we recommend you put aside an hour and a half and complete Home in a single sitting. That's the plan. Okay, ads are over. We can go. Turn up the sound, turn off the lights. I mean, it's still daylight. I could close the curtains, I suppose. You know what? Let's do that. Let's play this as they intended. Ugh, I can't see shit. But I am just about visible, so that'll do. All I remembered at that point was finding myself alone. Oh, my head. Where was I? It was so dark. There was something by my feet. A flashlight. That house. Where was I? Tup tup. There was a body lying on the floor. Who was it? Dunno, he did. Yeah. Okay. Also, my DualShock battery level is low. Which was the biggest scary thing of them all. Okay, let's check the door. Actually, that's a basement. Let's not go in the basement. The desk had a computer and some papers on it, and a single drawer. I didn't want to snoop, but did I open the drawer? Of course you did. Receipts, pens, and a blurry photo. It looked like a store of some kind. Why did this look so familiar? Blood on the wall. It smelled fresh and sickening. I realized there was blood on my shoes and pants. Oh man, I had to get out of there. Of course, having blood on your pants is a completely different thing in the UK, because we generally use that to mean underpants. I noticed that I limped as I moved down the stairs. How did I hurt my leg, I wondered. All I could really recall was coming home, seeing Rachel. I was upset. She looked afraid. I shook my head and tried to clear it. I knew I should head downstairs, try to find a way out. The shelf was full of books on local history and hunting. Seemed like the owner of the house really knew the area. Door. More stairs down. A thin grey mouse was stuck in a trap. It looked frantic, but exhausted. Did I free it? Sure. Let's try this door. A collection of rusty tools. These looked like they'd seen a lot of use and were caked in damp-smelling dirt. Why weren't they in a shed? I found a picture of a couple. It looked like it had been moved a lot. There seemed to be a switch behind it. Did I push the switch? Sure. It depressed smoothly into a wall. I heard a faraway click somewhere. Tap, 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 tap. An old dining table covered in dirty dishes for 2 people. There were dozens of beer cans and other liquor bottles among the dishes. The smell was turning my stomach. A black and white photo. Looked like the man upstairs and his wife, I guessed. There is no reason for me to keep this. Did I take it? Sure. I slipped the photo into my pocket. Maybe this would find me some answers. Rule number 1 of survival horror. Take everything you can carry. And push every button and hope it doesn't kill you. I looked like hell. My clothes were dirty and torn, and there was mud caked all over my shoes. As well as, the blood. The front door was blocked by a pile of furniture. I knew I had to find another way out. So got a door there. The crap was that? The door was taped up and seemed to be stuck. By the smell, I guess it led to the kitchen. The switch in the wall appeared to have unlocked the door. Okay. That's been untaped. Okay, let's try this door first. The bathroom was spotless. Everything had been wiped to a sheen. I wondered if it was the man's wife or who did the cleaning, or him. There was a photo development tray lying on the floor. Some leftover negatives were sticking out, but they were pretty blurry. I thought I saw what looked like treetops. Okay. Let's check the room we unlocked first and see what happens. Okay. There's a box which leads downstairs. Sort of looks like a crash. Crib thing. Okay. Let's check the kitchen. There were sheets of paper all over the kitchen table. It looked like a series of names were written down, but they were too smudged to read. I could only make out a few of the notes. Keycard, locker. Last one, I promise. It didn't make much sense at the time. Mouse friend. The box looked heavy, but there were marks on the floor. It had obviously been moved before. Maybe I had found a way out. I must have moved it, right? Sure. I heaved the box forward and it finally gave. There was a ladder going underground where the box was. A dank smell rose from the passage. Did I climb down the ladder? Sure did. I looked again at the photo I found in the house. The couple looked distant, like they didn't want to be in the same picture. I wondered where the wife was. My leg was in terrible shape, but I had to get out. Footprints in the dirt. Looked like more than one kind, and a lot of traffic. Places all over were marked on the old map of the town. The industrial area near the river, various houses, and even the water tower near the old rail station. Newspaper clippings from the local paper. They were all about murders in town over the last few years. Wait, there were photos. Photos of our house. What the hell was that about? Maybe I should have looked around more, trying to find some kind of information. A work table covered in papers, dirt, and a handgun. I hated guns. I didn't take it, did I? I tucked the small handgun into my pocket. Its weight was somehow reassuring. Again, survival horror. Take everything you can. Down, 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 and out. It was so dark down there, and the air smelled stale and putrid. I couldn't believe what I saw. What was this place? The desk looked old and was caked with grime. On it was a stack of old faded paper, covered with what looked like names. They were scratched out, and illegible notes were written beside them in faded blue ink. I could only make out a few letters. Sure. None of it made any sense to me. Some kind of homemade rack, slung together with poorly cut rope, wood and rope. It was caked with old blood. Somebody didn't actually use that, did they? Torture rooms. Always fun. Crudely made shelves. They looked like they were holding cans of some kind of corrosive. The labels were worn and slick, but I could still see the warnings. Go further down. It looked like a cage. It was small, but there was something coating the bottom. Something wet. There looked to be bones half dug into the ground, and the remains look old. The faded clothes that stuck up amongst the dirt looked familiar. They looked like the clothes that woman was wearing in the photo I found. Was this the man's wife? Probably. So am I the serial killer? Is the guy the serial killer? Some kind of old boxes. They looked like they were years old. Wait a minute. Those boxes had old clothes in them. Clothes I remembered throwing out after Rachel and I moved to town. What the hell were they doing here? There wasn't anyone there. Was I hearing things? Yeah, bats. That's a weird sound for bats. I remember noticing the broken ladder. I had to be careful. Okay. Hearing whispers now, that's fun. And a skeleton in the wall. So, you know. There was a rope hanging here. I wasn't sure how sturdy it was. Did I take it? Maybe that rope would make that broken ladder easier to descend. Wait, was that hook still? I had the rope now. There must have been use for it around somewhere. The rope I found would have let me climb down the ladder. Broken ladder safely. Did I climb down? Yes. It's the only way out. I could hear a faint hum, and then the smell from before started to get worse. A bunch of old newspapers, wheat pasted together. A message had been hastily smeared on it. Keep out. Danger due to cave-in. Let's go in. I could still feel a faint impression of the rope I had slid down as I pressed against the heavy metal door. It was probably for the best that I hadn't jumped. The ache in my leg was bad enough as it was. If I could have, though, I would have run straight out of those awful tunnels. Who would keep such a place? At least, I thought. I'd found that old handgun. It seemed to work, and from the smell of it, it had been used already. I kept the gun in my pocket. It seemed a familiar weight there. There was dirt on the ground. It looked wet, and there was grass smeared within it. Up or out? Up. Why not? Disgusting. It was a mess of filthy garbage bags. There were rips and tears in most of the bags. What looked like an old videotape was sticking out. Did I take the tape? Sure. I wasn't sure what I hoped to discover with the tape, but I took it anyway. I could hear a faint trickling sound like water. What was that? Water? A kitchen knife, covered in drying blood. Thinking about it made me sick. I didn't even want to touch it. Did I take the knife? I slipped the knife in my boot since I had the gun in my pocket. Did I really need all this? Yes, you're in a horror game. There was a rusty ladder sunk into the water which smelled disgusting. I knew I couldn't climb down that. Maybe I could find a way to drain the putrid water. I see. The door was locked. There was a musty smell from inside. What's behind door number 1? I wasn't sure, but I thought it was some kind of regulator. I had no idea how it worked. I thought I could turn this water valve to shut off its flow. Did I turn it? Not yet. I left the valve alone. Okay, let's turn these off in order. Yes. So how's this now? Okay. Dang it. No. That's still locked. So that's off. That's not a thing. Okay, some of them need to be turned twice. There we go. It's actually pretty tense for, you know, some pixels. Looked like the water drained out of that grate in the wall. There was a small metal key left floating in the shallow pool of rancid water. Did I take it? I pocketed the small key, but it was so odd-shaped I had no idea what it might open. The safety poster had definitely seen better days. How old was that facility? The door was locked. I could see a faint light within. Hang on, let's go and see if this key fits in that door. Probably not, but you never know. Video camera. I'm sure that's fine. I found another dead body. A sewer worker. By the wounds all over his face and body, I figured he'd been stabbed repeatedly. There was a keyring sticking out of the man's pocket. Did I take it? Yes. I thought about the knife I had found with some disgust as I carefully picked the keys from his pocket. I was almost worried he was going to grab me. I used the keyring to unlock the door. The shelf full of security tapes was strictly organized, though covered in dust. Looked like the tape I found was the one that was missing from the shelf. There was a dusty VCR on the security desk. I wondered what was on the VHS tape that I found. Did I play the tape? Oh no. The video showed a man right there in the sewers being attacked. The tape looked stretched, fuzzy and stretched, like someone had tampered with it. It looked like there could have been two men. I couldn't stand to watch that video again. Why am I so tense? It's just pixels. This stuff does not happen. I tried a bunch of the keys on the keyring that I found on that sewer worker, and one of them seemed to fit. Geiger counter? A collection of stale liquor bottles covered the floor. The wall was littered with dozens of old, faded papers. Whoever did this was obsessed with some local murders. According to some of the clippings, bodies had been found in ravines, in the forest, and in one case, dumped in the back of an abandoned truck. I couldn't be sure, but I thought some of these articles had also been pasted up back in those tunnels. A faded receipt was half trampled on the floor. It was from the local train station and was for 2 tickets. I didn't know what use it could be, but did I keep the receipt? Yes. I neatly folded the soiled receipt and slipped it into my front pocket. This apparently slightly irradiated receipt. Nang. Okay, up we go. Right, murder room. Door. Would I need that gun or that knife before the end? Both weighed me down and aggravated my leg as I climbed that old ladder. The thought of that videotape still gave me chills. Who was it that didn't want to be seen? Was it the same person that hid all those clippings away in that locked room? Suddenly, the awful smell of that sewer gave way to the pine-scented blast of fresh air. Sure, glowing eyes in the forest. That's good. Got a door. Yeah, just the door. Yep, definitely glowing eyes. It's fine, it's fine. It's probably nothing. Something is this way. I tried the little key I'd fished out of the murky puddle in the sewers. It fit, and I heaved open the rusty door. The wind was picking up a bit. The night air had become strangely chilly. Let's go back and see if there's anything else this way. Yeah, another door. This must have been the entrance to the forest that was mentioned on the map I had seen. Whoever was poking around in those tunnels underneath that man's house had scribbled notes on this place, but I couldn't make them out. Here the sign pointed to various campsites and walking paths within the woods. It mentioned a river, and maybe a washroom, but the rest was too faded to see clearly. Okay, so that's the way out. Let's check this way. The old train station was quiet as a tomb. The only sound was that of the increasing wind buffeting the decrepit structure. Door there. An old map encased in glass hung on the wall. It was the train routes connected to that old station. As I looked at it, it seemed familiar. Of course! The map I had found in those tunnels had similar locations marked, and the notes I found on the other man's bookshelf. His notes mentioned the water tower and even this train yard. What was he doing coming back here? The old train was ripped open, and hanging from a shred of metal, as well as the broken fence, was a dark-stained patch of cloth. It looked synthetic, like some kind of outerwear. Inside the train shell I could see a few faint impacts, like wounds. Could they have been bullet marks? Was somebody shot here? The ground was well worn, though I couldn't really make anything out. I realized I was touching the gun I had found, as I thought. An old ticket booth that looked fairly ruined. Inside the ticket window were sheets of paper and... Wait, what were these? Train receipts? I thought the receipt I had picked up might match these, but of course not. This station had been closed for years. The ticket must have been for the newest station that opened up on the other side of town after this one was abandoned. However, I noticed a series of fresher-looking paper covered in tiny notes, scribbles, and diagrams. Okay. Yeah. It was getting colder out there and I had to keep moving. Okay. So a choice of gaps in the foliage. Through the fence, I could see a dilapidated outbuilding. I wondered if I could find my way around. It's a friggin' hedge maze. So I just came out of the middle. There was a fire pit there. It was still warm and a few embers still burned at the bottom. Was someone else out in these woods? Why did they abandon their campsite? The cheap dome tent slept 2 people. I shone my flashlight inside and could see some bedrolls, 2 backpacks and a cooler. Left. There were some personal effects shoved back into the rock. Wait, there was a notebook there too. Did I read it? Sure. Inside the cheap dollar store notebook was page after warm page of names and lists. None of it made much sense. The newest page contained several names. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose, Rachel. The list that we found. Rachel! Her name was last on the list and had a mark beside it in blue ink. The names Daphne and Olivia had been crossed out in the same blue ink. Cheryl, Heather, and Rose had also been crossed out, but these marks looked older and more faded. So, right. No, 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 no. Don't go on, maybe? No, no. Yeah. The grimy sink had a small patch on it that looked almost clean. A musty wooden plank propped up the stall door. It didn't really seem useful. Did I bother to take it? Sure. I wasn't sure why, but I took the plank. I think the lack of music is really... When the music does hit, it's, you know, it makes you jump. The sign was the same as the first one I had seen. This must have been the exit to the other side of the woods. I'd finally found the exit. Once I left, I knew I never wanted to return there. Through the dense trees, I could finally start to see some light. I must have been at the edge of the forest, though I wasn't sure where the path ahead of me led. I could almost feel the cryptic notebook in my pocket as I tried to think about what it could mean. And who were the campers who had abandoned their site? Would I meet them too? The path ahead of me was less dense. I still felt guarded. Though the path ahead of me was less dense, I still felt guarded and wary. Who knew what was up ahead? Yeah, it's the lack of music that's really making me, you know, wig out. Spooky redness. As I stepped through the gate, I suddenly recognized the Autopots factory where I'd worked as a machinist for all those years. The plant had closed almost 3 years ago now. Times were better then. I thought I could hear a faint rustling behind me. Maybe it was just the wind. It's never just the wind. Giant asshole in the fence or... Creepy door. Bye. Not another victim. I took it from his uniform that he was a security guard there, just doing his job. His head had been severely beaten and his face was covered in blood. Dug into the ground was a cracked old watch. It was mine. I brought it on a trip out west with Rachel. I barely went a day without wearing it. It didn't look like it worked anymore and it was heavy. Did I take back my watch? Yes. Even though it no longer ran, I clasped the watch around my wrist. I clasped the wrist around my watch. Did I bury my watch here? I must have. Who else would have done it? Yeah. Some sort of demon? One of the lockers hung open. Its contents were tossed around like someone had been looking for something. There was a large power box with 5 lights on it. Cables burst out of the box, snaking off to other parts of the factory. The metal was starting to wear, and the cobwebs had collected in corners. The box wasn't receiving power. The door was locked tight. It appeared to be connected to the power box beside it. The door was locked tight. Danger closed for repairs. Okay. Up we go. Every part of this plant had smelled old and rotten. I noticed the old bulletin board on the wall. The board contained yellow clippings of newspaper cartoons and notices. There were notes to and from the guys that worked here. One of them was to Norman, who was one of the older guys on the line. Our old break table. The layer of dust and grime only made seeing this sting more. A power panel. Looked like it was shut off. Did I push the switch? The power panel still wasn't working. Did I try it again? Boo. The open locker was stuffed with dirty work clothes and old boots. There was a woman of a photo taped inside, but it was scratched out and the face was unrecognizable. A power panel. Looked like it was shut off. Did I push the switch? Boo. It was shut tight. There was a rusty-looking card slot on the inside. Door. Boarded door. The door had been hastily boarded up. This was Norman's locker. The door was dented like someone had punched it. I don't remember him doing that when we worked here. Another power panel that I hoped could help me get the power back on. Blah 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 blah. I can words. Push the button. A utility shelf, crammed with mismatched tools and items. There was a claw hammer on the shelf. Did I take the hammer? As I took the hammer, I noticed it wasn't as dusty as the rest of the tools on the shelf. Ah, the claw hammer. The locker was a complete mess. Hidden at the bottom, though, was a magnetic card. Did I take the card? Yes. I slipped the key card into my pocket. Another panel that I hoped could help me get the power back on. God, why can't I say that sentence? Yes. There we go. I struck with a hammer. The old wooden boards came apart easily. After I'd removed the planks, I left the hammer on the floor. Smashy, smashy. This was my locker, there at the factory. It stank of booze. There was a picture of Rachel on the inside. It looked like it had been torn up. I thought I had taken that picture home when the factory closed. There was a mess of empty booze bottles. I wonder if that man in the house had something to do with this. He sure had a lot of alcohol at his place. I think that might have been your house, dude. I think y'all took a trip to Crazy Town. There was some kind of ventilation hatch down here. It looked like I could jump into the room below. My leg hurt enough as it was, but I couldn't see another option. Did I jump? Let's not. If I was too chicken to jump down that broken ladder now, why do it now? Before, why do it now? There had to be another way. The door had somehow locked itself again. There was no keycard on this side. Well, peachy. Fine. Oh man, my leg hurt like hell. There was a crumpled up letter on the floor. It had been scratched out heavily and it was hard to make out. Did I try to read the letter? Yes. Most of the letter was violently scratched out with what looked like a ballpoint pen. All I could make out was, need to, just don't, drinking, need, Norman. Who was Norman writing to? I think I skipped a bunch of stuff. I stepped out of the factory, glad to be rid of its smell, of its memories. I couldn't stop thinking about that room with the bottles in it. Was that god I found outside really drinking up there? What about Norman? And who rooted through all those lockers? I couldn't tell where I was as I looked around, but I needed to get to a road, but I figured I needed to get to a road, find my bearings. Maybe Norman could help. His store wasn't that far off from the turnoff to the factory, if I remembered correctly. It's fine, there is nothing behind me. What are these random gates in the forest? It sounded like it was going to start raining again. I had entered Norman's place. This was the back of the store that he ran. It was oddly quiet except for the faint sound of a television. The entrance to the front of the store was locked from the inside. Looks like I couldn't just pop it open. It needed a key. There was a bit of blood on the keyhole. I mean, that's not a great sign. Oh good, more blood. Let's now go in the bloody room. What the hell? One of Rachel's old autumn coats hung on a rack. That was Norman's bedroom, wasn't it? What was this doing there? Inside the cabinet was a small but impressive collection of hunting rifles, shotguns, and even a few items I didn't think were legal here. One of the slots in the rack was empty. The gun I had seemed to match the others there. If the handgun was Norman's, what the hell was he doing with it? The gun would fit there. Did I place it back in the cabinet? No. Though it weighed on me, I had a hard time parting with the weapon just then. Are you crazy? Don't let go of a gun. The TV still flickered some indecipherable channel. Oh no, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Norman, one of my co-worker and one of the few friends I had in this town, lay dead beside his armchair. His face and shirt covered in blood. It looked like he'd been shot trying to get up. His eyes were wide in shock, though they were already drying. Norman, what was Rachel doing here? Why did you have her coat? Norman, maybe you deserve better. You probably did. Did I close his eyes? Yeah. I closed his eyelids down, shuddering as I did so. I wasn't sure if I wanted to give him peace, or if I just couldn't stand to think anymore about what was going on. I guess this was Norman's kitchen table. He kept it clean enough, but there were water rings from 2 cups still there in the wood. The kitchen trash bin smelled fresh. I didn't dig through that mess, did I? Sure you did. I found a hairpin among the rotting food and trash and pocketed it. Oh, I can lift my torch up. What was this? It looked like a pull chain hanging from the ceiling. I wondered where it could lead. Did I pull the chain? I gave the chain a simple tug, and a simple folding ladder to the attic popped down. Okay. Clearly missed a lot of stuff because I didn't know I could point my torch up. There was a large cardboard box that hadn't been sealed. Did I open it? I opened up the old cardboard box and wasn't entirely surprised by what I saw. There were more of Rachel's things, more of my wife's clothes. Photos, shoes, even that old radio I gave her. Why, Rachel? What were you doing here with Norman? I mean, I assume she left you and you went to Crazy Town, so... I might just pick my way? Yeah. I used the hairpin to pick the lock. The hairpin snapped in half, so I threw it away. The general store was small, but it was clean. It had the usual things: postcards, snacks, magazines, and canned goods. I never went there much. Rachel usually stopped by after work if we needed anything. The register was mostly empty, and a fat stack of travel magazines sat beside it. The icebox seemed to be unplugged. It must have been off for a while. Most of its contents were half melted. There were various postcards from the area, especially from the tourist traps. One of the postcards showed an old black and white photo of the water tower. It looked to be in much better shape then. That night continued to take horrible turn after horrible turn. It had been weeks since I'd last seen Norman, but to find him like that. As I thought of him lying on the floor back there, the gun I carried seemed ever present. Seeing that dusty box of old clothes was a shock. How long had they been back there? And what was Rachel doing at Norman's place? I felt like I only discovered more questions, no answers. But I was close to home. It was time to find out the truth. Okay, so 4 gates. Any one of them could be the place. Let's start with door number 1, shall we? Yeah. That one. It was locked. This wasn't the right gate. The gate was locked tight. This wasn't my house. The neighborhood's local postbox. A letter was sticking out as if someone hadn't pushed it all the way in. I knew it wasn't right, but did I look at the letter? Sure. The envelope was addressed to Norman. There was no return address, but the handwriting looked familiar. I took a deep breath and tore open the package. Norman, I'm sending this to you in a letter because I'm afraid to tell you this in person. What we did, well, it was wrong. My husband isn't an easy man to be with, but he is my husband, and your friend. I need some time to sort this out, away from you both. I'm going away for a while. I'm going to tell him, Norman, so I don't think you can hold that against me. Maybe we'll work it out. I'm not sure I want to, but he deserves that, at least that much. Goodbye. Welp. The gate was locked tight. It wasn't my house. I had the wrong gate. This one was locked. I had entered our backyard. The rain gave me a terrible sense of foreboding, and it chilled me through to my clothes. I was expectant, but also afraid. I never did fix this gate. It was stuck. I needed to press on. There was no turning back at that point. Well, again, I think I missed stuff, but yeah, this is a quick playthrough. And that's blood. I held my breath as I approached our back door. I was terrified to step inside. Because of all the blood everywhere? The house was painfully quiet. The only sound was my own breathing, ragged and strained. I flicked the light switch by the door. The power was off. I remembered having breakfast here on this very table. Was that yesterday or sometime before? The front door was locked from inside. I couldn't go out though. I needed to see if Rachel was here. Tip over table. The door to the basement. It was locked. Where did I put the damned key? The door was stuck shut. There was an old-fashioned keyhole underneath the handle. Our television. I purchased it before I knew I was going to lose my job. I felt pretty guilty about it afterwards, but by then it was too late. Including a PS4. It's so cute. Tup, 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 tup. So, door there. Our hallway mirror had been smashed, its pieces scattered around the floor. Our sink, which needed to be replaced. One of the taps always stuck, but I hadn't got around to fixing it yet. We were lucky enough to get a house with one of those wonderful old claw-footed bathtubs. My laptop had been left on, and only had a tiny bit of power left. On the screen was a website about the old water tower. There was a key in the top drawer of my desk. Did I take it? I pocketed the key. Clearly there's stuff going on at the water tower, but I think we missed that because, again, I didn't know I could do that. Always look up. The books there were half mine, half Rachel's. Hey, now that I look more closely, it looked like the man in that house had some of the same books as I did. My wife's, Rachel's, suitcase was sitting on the bed. It was closed, but I had a feeling what was in it. Did I open it? Inside Rachel's suitcase were a few days' worth of clothes, some personal effects, and a train ticket. As I stared at the ticket, I could feel myself flush with anger and resentment. The date and time matched the receipt I had found. Rachel, why? Were you really going to run away with Norman? Was I really such a monster? No, she was leaving both of you for a couple of days. You've read the note. You asshat. Doop, 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 doop. To the basement. I unlocked the basement door. There were old Christmas decorations in the box. The garbage bags were stuffed with old paint cans and supplies. There was a dirty old key here. Did I take the key? Yes. I took the small key and tried to remember what it unlocked. You dirty old key. There were old clothes, tools, and other things we obviously hadn't thrown out yet. I had put up this divider wall last summer so we could create a separate room in the basement. I hadn't finished it yet, so the door was stuck and the drywall was poorly installed. I might have been able to break through if I found something heavy enough. We had way too much junk. I couldn't even remember our last Christmas. Okay. Front door. We've established she's not. Oh, right. The old key for the old door. At least it's an old key and an old door, not a snake key and a snake door. The grimy key I'd found in the basement unlocked the door. It looked like the room had been tossed around. The furniture was a mess. Did somebody break in here? Did somebody break in here? There was an old crowbar on the floor. Did I need to take the crowbar? Yes, why not? I lifted the heavy crowbar. I appreciated its weight. They broke in but closed the windows neatly behind them. I mean, our boy is tooled up. He has a gun and a knife and a crowbar. Briefly a claw hammer. Did I break through the wall with the crowbar? It's the only way we can continue the game, so yes. With a heave, I swung the crowbar at the wall. I smashed a hole large enough to step through. And now we're orange, okay. As I stepped through the broken wall, my breath caught in my throat. This was it. Was Rachel down here? Was she okay? She's behind a wall that you plastered up. No, she's not okay. Don't look. Don't look. And blood. And some bloody bags. A filthy looking pile of rags had been dumped in the corner. The stench of them was awful and made my eyes water. I was terrified to even touch the pile, to see what lay within, but I knew I had to. I'd come this far. After all this searching, after all I had seen, when I looked within the rags, did I finally find my Rachel? No. The rags were wet, matted, covered in dirt and grime. But inside of that tattered mess was no sign of my beloved wife. Rachel wasn't there. I looked around in confusion, trying to figure out what to do next. If she wasn't there, where was she? What had I been searching for this entire time? I remembered the look on Rachel's face when I came home. Didn't I? Then the awful realization hit me right in the gut. I had been looking at this the wrong way, hadn't I? This is what you've been trying to tell me all along, isn't it? I couldn't find Rachel there, and I won't find her anywhere else, because she was never there at all, was she? I stumbled back upstairs, the pain in my leg just a dull ache now, and sat down in my bedroom. My mind was spinning, and the ache I felt before was near crippling. Finally, I could no longer fight the exhaustion, and as I tried to grab hold of something that would make sense of this, I must have drifted off. And wake up back in the house. I guess these books were actually mine then. It was the photo of the other man and his wife that I found in that house. Were those really his wife's remains in those tunnels? It certainly seemed so. What did I think? Did the other man murder his wife and bury her in those tunnels? Yes, the sick bastard must have. What else did that mean? There were some questionable things in those tunnels. What else was he wrapped up in? In the shards of that broken mirror I could see my face, gaunt now, hollow and sickly, and immensely troubled. What other illusions had I dreamed up? What other truths were waiting to be exposed? It was the key card I found in the factory, the one that allowed me to slip through that door. It seemed to me that it was probably Norman's, but if that was true, what was he doing back at the plant? Did I think Norman was going back to the factory? No, somebody else was using that locker room, but who? The laptop had finally run out of power. In the dirty, faded glass, I looked like nothing more than a faint shadow. I used to tell myself that Rachel was the one who wanted to keep the tub. My old office safe sat on the floor. I used to keep tax records and other important documents in it. It used a digital passcode lock, but I didn't have the code. Maybe I'd left it somewhere. 8 names written alongside those odd marks in different colours were printed in that notebook. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose. I recalled the names that I saw scratched out in that old desk deep within those musty tunnels. Was the man in that house really up to something? It was the letter I had taken from the postbox. It had gotten a bit wet in the rain, but well, who wrote that letter then? Who was Norman seeing? Oh no, Norman. If I was wrong about Rachel, then what about him? Did I do that horrible thing to him? No. I couldn't have. I clearly wasn't seeing things correctly, but no, I could never do something like that. I had that old TV for so long, I don't know if I could ever replace it. It seemed like I'd seen all there was. Maybe, I thought, I was ready to go back into the basement. Now that's sitting upright. Okay. How many breakfasts had I eaten there completely alone? All of them. If I was guilty, I could take this to a warm, safe place and do something about it. Did I pick up the knife? Sure. I took the knife and kept it firmly in my hand. If I wanted to end it, I could do it. I could do it with that gun. Did I pick it up again? No. Just the thought made my head spin. I left the gun on the cold basement floor. Everything smelled musty and old down there. I must have locked the door. There was no reason to return to the backyard anyway. I knew I needed to escape that nightmare, but what about the knife I still carried? I wondered, even if I left, would it really be over? So did I leave that house forever? Since I'd arrived in town, things had been difficult. Working at the plant, though, had been good for me. It kept me in line, gave me something to do, and helped me get away from my past. When the factory closed, everything changed. I guess that was when I started sleepwalking, disappearing for hours at a time. Drinking was probably just a way to deal with that. It was almost as if I was trying to beat my brain at its own game. Things stopped making sense sometime after that, and my memories of what happened are still in flux. I suppose that was when Rachel came along. This night had been the worst of my entire life. Would it even be possible to bounce back from everything that had happened? Everything I'd seen? You know, in a way, I almost wish I hadn't even woken up tonight. It would have spared me a lot of pain. That man I had found in that old house had killed his wife, I was sure of it. Just as sure as you killed mine. After making it out of those tunnels, I thought those sewers might feel safer. I was wrong. The security tape I had watched showed someone being attacked by what looked like 2 people. But who was it that was attacked? That forest, though, was no escape either. That notebook especially left me troubled. I remembered seeing a similar list on that desk back in the tunnels. Who were the girls mentioned there? I suspected there were more to those woods than I knew, though I had no intention of going back. But anyway, Norman couldn't have been the one going back to the factory, so who else could it have been? Maybe that other man I found, or maybe it was just the guard all along. You know, you've really screwed me up. I feel like I can't trust a damn thing I've seen anymore. I had to catch my breath, to take it all in. At each point until the factory, things had only gotten worse. But then going to Norman's store, that's when the confusion and doubt started to set in. That's when my perspective on this really started to change. Damn it, Norman, What were you doing with Rachel? I mean, what was going on? If all this was a lie, then what was really happening? Someone had killed Norman in his store, but it wasn't me. Who else would have wanted him dead? But as painful as all of that was, oh no, I couldn't bear to think about it again. After all I'd seen and done, finally coming home was supposed to be the end to this entire ordeal. I had no idea, though, that was only the beginning. The silence in the house when I first stepped through the kitchen door, that should have been my first clue. To think that I went through all of that completely unaware of what I would discover. Did you know before the end? Did you mock me when you finally showed me the truth? You don't know what it's like to have everything ripped away from you in a heartbeat. How could I possibly go on, now knowing what I do? Without Rachel, even the thought of Rachel, I was truly lost. As the door swung open, I could smell damp grass and the closeness of the air. After everything, it felt like I had more questions than answers. You made me see the truth, I'll give you that, but now I was completely lost. You took away the only thing that had kept me going. I was sure word would get out, and soon enough the police would come looking for me. And what then? Would you be there to show me the way? What will I do then? Okay. That was kind of neat, although it felt a bit inconsistent at the end, I guess. But yeah. Like, did I find my wife there? No. She left you before you killed her, I guess. But no, she never existed. You made her up, man. So it would have been better for his sanity if you'd actually killed her? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, that was kind of fun. And I think, again, this game is cheap, so probably a couple of quid. So, yeah, I'd recommend it. Much better than frickin' Godzilla. So yeah. That's it for the home. I'll probably loop back around to this at some point. Try and do things differently, say no to a lot of things. Okay, so I will be going offline again for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back with Inside, which I want to play. So, but I'll need to do a quick thing of it. See you in a couple of minutes. Bye, guys.